I wanted to also talk about one of my favourite CBT interventions, which is a really, really simple thing to understand. Also, it's easier said than done. The doing of it can be a bit of a challenge, actually, but it really, really works for people when they're suffering from low mood, depression, or just flatness and demotivation, and it's called behavioural activation. So the core tenet of behavioural activation is really that at the heart of depression is a vicious cycle, and that vicious cycle looks a little bit like I feel depressed and therefore I've got low motivation and therefore I won't do anything, but therefore I feel depressed. So you can see it becomes something of a self-fulfilling prophecy, and people can get trapped in this essentially downward spiral indefinitely, so of feeling depressed, lower motivation, and then not being able to do anything about it. So one of the things as CBT therapists we're really keen on getting depressed people doing is starting some of the activities that they used to do but have let fall by the wayside. So that means thinking of all the things that really matter to that individual. We tend to lean people in the directions of things like routine, social connection, productivity or achievement, a sense of connection, our pleasure, there's one I forgot. So doing things that actually feel, you're actually getting joy from them. And that's going to feel overwhelming for people, I think, at the start. So what you want to do is kind of highlight some key domains for them and break those domains down into tiny little bite-sized goals that they can kind of pepper over their week, and then bit by bit, incrementally as the week goes on, and they stay committed to carrying out those tasks, and hopefully you'll start to see an improvement in their mood. Because what's happening, if you go right back to the start, where we've got this vicious cycle of depression, of feeling too flat to do anything, is you force them to do one thing that day that's quite easy, and as a result of that they don't feel less motivated, they actually feel slightly more motivated, and then maybe the next day they can springboard off the back of that success and do two things that make them feel slightly more motivated. And at the end of, let's say, 2 to 4 weeks of fairly consistent work of sort of breadcrumbing yourself back into action, you've really broken that maintenance cycle that sits at the heart of depression, and the chances are you're on something of an upward trajectory now. Maybe you're kind of instigating friends hanging out, maybe you're being more communicative with loved ones, maybe you're being more driven or focused with your studies or work, maybe you're hitting the gym and eating healthily, maybe you're making sure you go out, or maybe you're even finding time to be creative. And once you get, like, it's almost like spinning plates, you've got that person doing all these different things simultaneously, it's actually quite hard for depression to persist. Now that doesn't mean there's not other difficulties that can confound that, such as low self-esteem, for example, but in terms of a isolated episode of depression, if you can crack that, then you've really broken the back of the disorder. So again, this is something that only really works when you test it out in real life, and I would love to hear if that was useful for you, any successes you've had with it, or even any barriers you've had with that, and we can start a conversation on that. So either let me know in the comments or reach out over email, and I look forward to hearing from you in due course.